Hello, ladies, and welcome back to Boots Over Heels, a Southern Grace clothing podcast with me, your host, Jade, based here at Southern Grace's headquarters in Dallas, Texas. For this episode, I have a story for you about a job opportunity, a strange coworker, and a cozy denim jacket. This episode is Debbie's denim jacket. Debbie is 35, and she lives with her husband, Chase, and her two teenage daughters, Daisy and Dakota, in Florida. She's worked for the last 10 years at a daycare near her home called Sunny Kids Cottage, where she watches preschool-aged kids after school and in the summertime. And she's getting a promotion. She knows it. She's worked hard for years. She's shown up. She's accepted her pay without argument. The assistant manager, Harris, quit 2 weeks ago to start his own company, and the position is open. She was wondering if she should put her name in for consideration when her manager, Miss Nichols, reached out to Debbie and asked her to come in on Thursday for a meeting. She is more than excited. She's ecstatic. Her husband, Chase, works hard and has been working hard for years. She works part-time, and bringing home some extra money could mean more respect from her coworkers, more time off, less stress. They could replace their dining room table, finally. And her daughter Daisy is turning 13 this month, and she desperately wants to go to Disney World. Debbie has never even been herself, and she's nearly as excited as Daisy about the prospect of going. Maybe Debbie and Chase will surprise her this year. Chase will be so proud of her. He always is. Debbie hasn't even told him about the meeting yet. She wants to surprise him with the good news today when it's official. Maybe she'll pick up pizza or burgers for dinner as a treat, because today is Thursday. Today is the meeting. 4 p.m. She's waiting until 4 p.m. And then today will be her last day as a student teacher, as they call them. Really, they're glorified babysitters. She wears a blue shirt and her black khakis, her denim jacket, and she counts attendance and tells the kids to quiet down when she needs to. Debbie works primarily with the toddlers, and half the day is just cleaning up their messes. Even if they tell the kiddos to clean up themselves, they're so little they can't get the details right, and they don't clean everything quite the way they're supposed to. So Debbie sweeps up after little Rodrigo and Ethan and Travis and Layla, all her preschool kids. She doesn't mind, even though it means that once she gets home, she has to do it all over again for her own house. Actually, it's not that she doesn't mind her job. She even kind of likes it, because the kids make all the effort worth it. She loves getting to know each little kid that moves through her class. But she's still excited for her promotion. Not just the money, but also because of Crystal. Don't get Debbie wrong. She doesn't hate Crystal or anything, but sometimes she feels like Crystal may not like her. They work together in Debbie's class, since 2 student teachers are always assigned to one classroom. She's younger than Debbie, with blonde hair and a silver charm bracelet that tinkles when they clean. Debbie sometimes sees the bracelet drag through the kids' food when Crystal's serving them, but Debbie hasn't mentioned it. Sometimes Crystal is nice and outgoing, and she'll regale Debbie with a story about her boyfriend Parker, who's always doing something wrong. They'll laugh and talk about their lives, and Debbie will mention her kids or Chase, and they'll laugh at those stories too. The problem was the other days. Debbie'd only worked with Crystal for about 6 months, and Crystal seemed to have a very different style than the last student teacher Debbie had worked with. Crystal would suddenly pounce on Debbie for doing something wrong that she's done every day for 10 years. She hated Debbie's denim jacket because it was in the bylaws you had to wear business casual, and Crystal didn't define denim that way. So on her first day working with Crystal, Debbie stuffed the denim jacket into her cubby in the break room, and she only wore it when Crystal was out of the classroom, so Crystal wouldn't berate her about it. Not that it made a huge difference. Crystal always found something to berate Debbie about. Debbie's shoes, Debbie's attendance sheet, Debbie's familiarity with the kids. Debbie once turned to throw a spoon away, and Crystal jumped down her throat for that. "You never turn your back to the classroom, Debbie. It can get you fired." That phrase. It can get you fired. Debbie heard it at least once a week now. It hung over Debbie's head, and it scared her every time. She wished she had a list of all the fireable offenses, but what good employee would ask for such a thing? On some days, Crystal would also give Debbie news from their superiors. "They've noticed the drawing, Debbie," she said one day. "The drawing?" Debbie said, confused. "Yes, when you doodle when you should be watching the kids." "You mean when they ask me to draw pictures for them to put in their cubbies?" "Whatever, Debbie, they've noticed it," Crystal said, and she stalked away. What did that mean, notice? Did that mean to stop? Did that mean to just do it less? Were Debbie's bosses even paying attention at all? And if they were, why not tell Debbie herself? Crystal and her were coworkers after all, not employee and boss. Nevertheless, Debbie stopped drawing pictures for the kids. Better safe than sorry. Crystal was in one of her moods this Thursday. As Debbie asked the kids who wanted an extra pack of gummies, Crystal took over, grabbing them away. "Debbie, they cannot have any more sugar. Cafeteria says 1 pack each. What are you trying to do?" "Oh, sorry," Debbie said, annoyed that for some reason, every time Crystal snapped at her, that Debbie responded with an automatic apology. She wished she was more willing to talk back. Who cares about an extra gummy or two? Debbie took a deep breath and steeled herself. This would be her last day in the classroom with Crystal. She knew it. At 3:55 exactly, Debbie told Crystal she had to go. "What?" Crystal said. "If you leave without permission, that's fireable. You know that, right?" "Yes," Debbie said. "I know that, but I have a meeting with Miss Nichols specifically today." "Oh, okay. Fine," Crystal said. Yes, Debbie thought to herself, it certainly is fine. She walked confidently to the main office where Miss Nichols was working at her desk. She waved Debbie in while she was on the phone, and Debbie sat patiently for her to finish her conversation. Miss Nichols was laughing a lot, and the call seemed private, so Debbie felt a little uncomfortable, and it took kind of a while, but Debbie was still excited. Eventually, Miss Nichols was done with her phone call, and she turned to Debbie to say hello. Debbie always thought it odd how little Miss Nichols was actually at the school. She'd work 1 or 2 days a week, and most of that time Debbie would see her chatting, smiling, eating, and not really working. It hurt a bit to see, especially since Debbie so often had to get on her hands and knees and wipe up throw up or replace diapers for kindergartners. But at least Debbie was on her way up the ladder now, on her way to the top. No more diapers for Debbie. "Debbie," Miss Nichols said, "I have to let you go." "No more diapers at all, then." Debbie talked to Miss Nichols a little longer, and she was trying not to cry. Nichols was nice enough, but she also said Debbie was being terminated because there were simply too many complaints about her in the last 6 months. They couldn't keep someone with that many complaints. Debbie was shocked. She had no idea anyone had complained about her. Was it the parents, Debbie asked, racking her brain for her mistakes. "No," Miss Nichols said. "It was a coworker." And Debbie knew. "Debbie, why don't I walk you out?" Miss Nichols walked out the door with Debbie, talking softly about her last paycheck, her cubby, when they'd like her to return her shirts. Outside of her office, in the hall, though, Crystal sat on a bench, picking at her nails. "Who's watching the class?" Debbie blurted. "Oh, Elijah is," Miss Nichols said. Why was Crystal waiting outside Miss Nichols' office? Nichols kept walking Debbie to her cubby in the break room, and she left her there so Debbie could collect her things. Debbie stared at her little cubby, decorated in stickers and drawings, her little lunchbox tilted from her lunch earlier that day. Debbie started gathering it up, her eyes burning with tears. Crystal was going to get promoted instead. That's why she was outside of Miss Nichols' office. Crystal got Debbie fired, and then she snatched up the position that Debbie had been waiting for years. Debbie bundled up her jacket under her arm, hiding the denim that Crystal said wasn't appropriate for work, wishing that she had paid closer attention to the rules of the school. Maybe Crystal wouldn't have said anything. Maybe she wouldn't have been fired. Debbie went home and told Chase, and they watched movies with their girls, and they ordered pizza to try and cheer her up. It worked a little, but she still wrapped herself tight in her denim, wishing she had done everything differently. For a few months after, Debbie still didn't have a job. When she had been expecting a bump, she instead had a huge setback. They celebrated Daisy's birthday at home with a cake and candles instead of a trip to Disney. Daisy didn't know that had ever been part of the plan, but Debbie resented its absence anyway. She would have loved to spoil her family. But Debbie was determined to get a job, so she kept applying and applying and applying, and eventually Debbie applied for a position as a student teacher at another daycare that was even closer to her home than the Sunny Kids Cottage. When she went for the interview, the school was tidy and the kids looked happy. The teachers were wearing their own clothes instead of frumpy blue t-shirts, and Debbie was immediately excited. The pay was higher too. She tried her best at the interview with a woman named Francine, and Debbie thought she did a pretty good job. They told her they'd have to let her know, and she honestly hoped they would. The day after her interview, she got a call from Sunny Kids Cottage. Debbie was surprised, but she picked up the call anyway. "Hello?" Debbie answered, thinking that it may have been a mistake. It was Miss Nichols. Turns out, Crystal had been a bit overloaded since she was promoted, and they wanted to hire her back as a student teacher. She would take over Crystal's classes, and Crystal would be her supervisor. Crystal had redacted some of her complaints, and they'd be happy to have Debbie back, after retraining her, of course, since she had had an issue with that. Debbie tried hard not to be offended, and decided to accept the interview. She wasn't about to say no to a job, any job, even the job that let her go in the first place. She went to the interview. When she had first met Miss Nichols, it had been alone, one-on-one. But this time, Crystal was there too. Debbie thought the two women looked a bit odd, sitting behind just one shared desk, but it wasn't any of her business, really. Debbie wore a smart blazer and a button-down shirt. She thought she looked rather formidable and confident, and yet she lost all that confidence as soon as she sat down in front of Crystal. Why did that keep happening? Miss Nichols started off with, "As you know, dear, we did let you go." And Debbie actively kept her face smiling slightly as she said, "Yes, I'm aware." "Well," Miss Nichols said, "we realize that without you and with Crystal being a manager, we are short-staffed. Despite your flexibility with the code of conduct, the kids have been asking after you ever since you left, and 2 new hires didn't end up staying with us. We've decided that if you are willing to go through a retraining and a 2-week trial period, that we would be happy to have you come back to work with us as a starting student teacher." Debbie couldn't believe what she was hearing. She knew, of course, that Crystal had complained about her. She knew coming into this they would want her back. She didn't know that they'd call her following the rules flexible to her face, and she had never actually broken any rules. Debbie knew she'd never mistreated a child. She'd always shown up for work on time. She was always in her uniform, and she was always ready to be helpful. She didn't know that they would demand an intensive retraining and, the worst part, a 2-week trial period. After 10 years of hard work, dedication, no questions, and not as many raises as she should have received. And then Crystal took off her blazer in the warm office. Since she was a manager now, Crystal didn't have to wear the scratchy blue shirts, and beneath her black blazer, Debbie saw what the desk had blocked from her. Crystal was wearing a denim shirt, a chambray shirt they're also called, but denim nonetheless. A not work-appropriate fabric, according to Crystal. She had made Debbie feel so terrible about her denim jacket for all this time, and here she was in a denim shirt. And suddenly, that was the last straw. No, Debbie didn't have a job right now. And yes, they needed the money, but she wasn't going to work here ever again. She straightened her back and adjusted her blazer, and she decided she'd speak her mind. "You know what?" Debbie said, shocking Miss Nichols and Crystal with the tone of her voice, since both eyes snapped up to her. "I worked here for 10 years. I never once received a warning. I never once was written up for inappropriate behavior. I was underpaid, underappreciated, mistreated. Crystal has been here for less than a year, and in the time I worked with her, she spent more time on her phone than being around the kids." At this, Miss Nichols glanced at Crystal, who was staring daggers at Debbie. "I'm willing to bet that all the complaints you received about me were from her, and instead of seeing if they were actually true, or if they came from a place of selfishness and greed to get ahead, you simply believed her. 10 years of work, and you throw me out at the first sign of trouble." Both women looked shocked. This was maybe more than Debbie had ever spoken to the two of them. "But guess what?" Debbie said. "It turns out Crystal can't handle it, can she? She doesn't know what she's doing. 2 other people you hired, and neither stayed. I wonder why. You had to hire more people because Crystal couldn't deal with the workload? I bet she had a sob story with probably pretty good reasons for her underperformance. She gets the benefit of the doubt, though, doesn't she? Crystal was turning red, and she spoke up in response. Debbie, you have no right to. I'm talking now, Crystal. You've talked enough, I think. Debbie turned to Miss Nichols. I should have gotten that manager position, but I bet you just completely looked over me, forgot about me. And I also bet you're starting to see the mistake of hiring Crystal. That's why you need me back, because she can't do it all, and I could have. Debbie, that's not exactly what Miss Nichols started. You mistreated me, and you mistreated me today. A 2-week trial period? I deserve much better. Debbie finally turned fully to face Crystal, and she even found herself standing up out of her chair. Crystal and Miss Nichols scrambled to stand in response, but Debbie didn't wait for them to figure it out. And you, Debbie said, you are mean. You nitpicked me, you bullied me. I never once broke any actual rules, but you can't deal with the competition. You want to be the one in charge. Well, you got it, but not through your work or your own performance, through manipulation. I hope it was worth it. She grabbed her purse off the chair, both women sputtering in confusion and frustration. I will not be taking the job. Good luck finding a long-lasting solution without me. And she left. She had a big smile. And Debbie got a call the next day. She got the job at the closer company, but not as a student teacher. After reviewing her experience, they brought Debbie on as a manager. Her family even went to Disney World. She took her denim jacket. And that's the story of Debbie's denim jacket. I think that a lot of women have the tendency to not stand up for themselves in work environments. I think a lot of us tend to be okay with pay we feel is less than it should be. We try not to make trouble. We try not to argue with managers. We try not to argue with coworkers because we want to be helpful and we want to be good workers and we want to be professional. And sometimes that can work against us. I know that's happened to me personally in my life, and I think that this is a really heartwarming story and a good reminder that you are always allowed to stand up for yourself. And if you feel like you deserve more, you probably do. I think that knowing your self-worth and knowing what you can do and how you should be treated is one of the best ways to move through life and feel fulfilled and happy. So if you're in a job right now where you feel maybe you're not getting what you deserve, or you feel like you're being a little mistreated, or even you have a coworker who is somewhat rude to you sometimes, maybe you should take a second and think about what you should do differently in that situation. What would make you feel better? Would it make you feel better to ask for a raise? It's a scary concept, but learning to negotiate and learning what we're worth is so important, and it can add so much to our happiness. I just hope that we all take a little message here from Debbie and her confidence. I mean, it took Debbie losing her job to find her confidence, but she still found it, and that's really all that's important. And so I hope that we all find confidence from this episode here today. And thank you so much for talking with me, you guys. I had the best time with this episode. I really loved getting to know Debbie and her denim jacket. I have my own denim jacket. Who doesn't have a denim jacket? Thank you so much for tuning in to Boots Over Heels. Let's remember to walk with empathy and kindness and to stand up for ourselves and to get what we deserve. And I'll see you on the next episode of Boots Over Heels, the podcast where we understand Southern women because we are Southern women. Goodbye, ladies!